Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, who puts safeguards on life so that those who have no respect for life cannot be successful in this world. I have a message of congratulations for the people of Syria, and we have a big project in the works to reveal the secret history of the world, and um, we will unveil the history of the world economy, and the world economy basically began about 500 years ago, and we um, we want to uh, support the Syrian people against anyone who does not have any respect for life. Um, there is a big presence with control over social media, because they've had every advantage to take control of the social media, and they're trying to make this nightmare a reality, but it has never been the reality. They are so far lost from the meaning of life, and they are very jealous. And we wish for the people of Syria to regain all of the rights. We wish for the borders to be opened immediately for trade and travel, and to restore those passports for the people of Syria, because it is their right to change their nationality and to move to another country, and it's their right to return home. So, yesterday, the country of Syria became free. It was the day of victory for the revolution of Syria, where basically about 18 million out of the 22 million people um, disavowed this leader, this man who took control of the natural resources of Syria, and deprived the life of the people of the land. His time has finished finally, and it began on the day after the holiday of Thanksgiving. It was November 28th. The and we will describe how the journey. It was a journey from the city Aleppo and down to Hama and to the city of Homs, and finally down to Damascus, and also from the city Dara northward towards Damascus. Congratulations to the people of Syria. We have no doubt that you will be successful. You are the only country in the world who has successfully fought a dictator and won. He has used arsenals of technology far beyond the abilities of an average man. The dictator had all the advantages. We had every disadvantage burdened on us. The dictator is not a relic of Syria, it's a relic of world history. There was a fight of good and evil in the world, and Syria fought alone, absolutely and utterly alone in the fight of good against evil. And no voice of reason was recognized in all the time of the revolution. All of the laws of humanity were broken in the treatment of the Syrian people. Syria is twice the size of Lebanon, twice the size of Israel, twice the size of Jordan. Syria is half the size of Saudi Arabia and half the size of Iraq. The borders were closed. The passports were invalidated. It violates the laws of humanity. After 10 years of starvation, deprivation, sadistic perversions upon the people. The young men who were 10 years old are now 20 years old. Every 10-year-old boy who was attacked by Assad is now driving in a pickup truck and reclaiming stolen family homes. He is no longer a helpless child of small stature. Now he is a full grown man. For 10 years, Erdogan told the men of Syria to sit down in a tent and wait. Erdogan had forbidden the people to try to return to their homes. But last week, Erdogan of Turkey finally gave the green light to the men of Syria that they would not be stopped from going home. He sent gas money, and all the men went together down the highway, the M4 and the M5. The dictator's supporters in Aleppo set down their weapons immediately. They were fragile, holding on by only a thread to Assad. The men of Syria who were 20 years old under bombardment of Assad are 30 years old today. They are the group leaders of the convoy. They have with them the perfect soldiers, a soldier who has known war since he was a child, who is deprived of his future, and who is seeking to go home. There's no higher form of military movement known to humanity. There is no purpose of a military more sacred than the people of Syria who are on the highway to Damascus. Assad has sold every part of Syria, from the phosphate mines of Palmyra, where Putin and Ayatollah get their nuclear uranium warheads. He is now bankrupt. He traded the oil fields in Syria in exchange for his own life. Syria's oil guarantees the independence of the military fleet of the Americans in the Middle East, and therefore the Americans allowed Assad to keep his life. If the Americans have to pay for their own gas in the Middle East, they will lose their power here. It is impossible to run a foreign military base with no gas. Can you imagine a world without ships? It was only 500 years ago. The Europeans rowed the first sailboats to the east for trade in a desperate and savage voyage to bypass the Middle East. For the past 100 years, the power structure has become exactly the opposite. The Middle East has become the center of world commerce because of the technology which requires gas. Syria is the geographical center of the world commerce route. The Far East has become unstoppable. China and India rule the world economy and are rivaled only by the gas and iron industries that they need to run their machines. China and India have a geographical phenomenon of massive networks of interconnected rivers, and these cannot be found anywhere else in the world. The rivers are formed by the roof of the world, the Himalaya mountain range and the Tibet plateau. Every mountain range has two sides. On one side of the mountains are the rugged plateau of high elevation, thin air, and many lakes. On the other side of every mountain range is all of the rivers and fertile soil. The life always separates at the mountains. One side is always barren, and one side is always paradise green. The roof of the world is the Himalayas, and therefore China and India have the greatest water systems known to mankind on this planet. The rivers allow the cities to get bigger. The more interconnected waterways, the bigger the city. The number of people in China and India is the precise reason why they are the most powerful energy in the world economic system. The world economic system is why all of the walls and floors of the house are adorned with beauty that mankind had never imagined in history. It is inconceivable 100 years ago that any average man could live in a home that looks like the ones we have today. If you go back in time, the life would be unrecognizable. There is not one dictator who put the people of the land in a tent outside his city. In fact, all of the dictators were required to join forces. And to this day, they have been the losers. It took 20 dictators to keep the people of Syria in a tent for 10 years. It is the truth about the impotency of dictators. The exceptional quality of the men of Syria will be unveiled more and more until a golden legacy will be known for all of history. The men are driving home in a car and they have not had to use advanced weapon systems. They have not needed to level a city. They have not demolished any infrastructure. They have not killed one single woman nor one single child. They have not they have retaken Syria simply by their presence because it is their right and inheritance. To the people of the Arab world, we want to hear your cheers. We want to hear your apologies. We want the people of the Arab world, our neighbors, to repent for leaving Syria alone in the fight of good against evil. Let this be a warning to the world that even if you have 20 dictators helping each other to close borders, drop bombs, and to write a decade of lies and treachery, you will lose. You have no right to rule mankind. Because mankind has now reached the dawn of technology. Technology that 500 years ago mankind would never dream of. Now these old regimes have lost power. May God give the highest honors to those who we lost in the great battle of evil. Today there is a small group of jealous men, and there was a small group of jealous men in homes using suppressive weapon fire to stop the convoy of people of Syria from returning home, and they finished with after a small time. The supporters of the dictator have lost everything today. They will never get it back. It is only a small time before the beloved people of Homs, they are back in the arms now of the children of the families who fought for humanity. The people of Syria should know the very moment that the borders are opened and travel is permitted, the country of Syria will be poured into by every businessman, every distant relative of the Middle East. They will, the tourists, the population of Syria will be adorned with every adornment and sweets of this world because you are the center of the world. The tourists will migrate, and the people who migrate, they will come down the highways. Their vehicles will be filled with their riches and goods, exactly as the men of Syria traveled down the M5, the M4 and M5 to Damascus, and we will retrieve the sacred property of the families of Syria. They are the crown of the Middle East, on the east shore of the Mediterranean, the cradle of civilization, the crossroad of empires, and the heart of humanity. Your loving daughter, Catherine Alwan. Allahu Akbar.